everyone, welcome to Soap by Dennis. My name is Dennis and this is the first time I'm doing an intro video. I thought I'd share a little bit more about myself. You can already hear from my accent that I'm not from the UK or America. I'm Dutch. I'm half Spanish, half Dutch, but I live in Germany. This happened about 10 years ago that I came here for my job, which I changed. I'm now studying to become a nurse, something completely different than what I did before. I used to be a musical theater performer, and yeah, that's very compact, a little story about my life and how I ended up living in Germany. So, this is supposed to be about soap, so I'm going to be talking about my next soap. Today I'm going to be showing you guys how to make an espresso soap. Well, not so much espresso this one, but I had so many positive reactions on my last soap that I made, which was an espresso soap. So I tried to imitate what I did, which obviously went wrong, because whenever you want to retry or redo something and you put the camera on it, stuff is not going to go the way it's planned. Anyway, the soap in question that I had so many positive feedback on in a couple of Facebook groups was this one. This is the espresso soap. It's got a little espresso bean on the top. I made this because, like I said, I'm studying at the moment to become a nurse, and my exams are coming up in just 2 months, and it's all getting a bit tight time-wise. I've got to study a lot. My next final internship is starting in 2 weeks, and so I decided to quit my side job, which was working as a barista in a cafe. And we're also a coffee roasters, so we roast our own beans. We've got our own coffee beans that we sell, and I thought it'd be a fun present for my colleagues and my chefs to make a soap using the beans that we actually use in the shop. So we've got this type of beans that is like the ones that we use every day, that we make all the coffee drinks with, that we sell, and it's called Wake Up Little Lucy. And so I used these beans, and I actually used the grounds that I used. So I worked there on Friday and Saturday, and on Friday the first couple of shots that I pulled, I saved the grounds and I let them dry, and I put that in the soap. So it's actually used espresso beans, so they have another function than just becoming trash, except that it's not much. It's just like, because you cannot put that much espresso grounds in a soap. So I just used a little bit because I don't want it to be too abrasive on the skin. And so I did that. Anyway, so this was the first soap that I made, and it was a technique that I used involving a big wooden rod that I poured 3 layers of soap, and in different colors, like you see. So I colored this one with cocoa powder, like unsweetened raw Dutch cocoa powder, and actually the caramel color is made with pink clay. Now it's called pink clay, but in my experience the pink always turns brown. Even the raw clay powder already looks kind of brown. Maybe there's different types of pink clay, but mine looks kind of brown, and ended up looking a perfect caramel brown color for my soap. And then the other part is almost uncolored. I put a little bit of titanium dioxide in there, just to give it a little bit of a boost and not make it too yellow, because I used quite a very yellow olive oil, and I didn't want it to have that color. So my second soap where I tried to redo the whole thing turned out to be quite different. Let me show you one where you can really this was one of the first bars I cut, I believe, and I was like, oh, this is not what I planned, this is not what it was supposed to look like, even though whilst I was making the soap I already realized that it was not going according to plan. So this is number 2. And it's not, I don't find it hideous, it's just not what I wanted to show, because it just doesn't look as fluid as the first one looked. And the problem was, as I was making my soap, my batter this time stayed fluid forever. So you'd think, well, that's perfect because you wanted this fluidity in the design. But this is not, it was too fluid. Like, it literally was like water, and I don't know what went wrong. It couldn't have been the scales, because I used the same scales and they're brand new and they're perfect. And as you can see, the bar came out fine, and it's hard, so the ingredients are fine. I forgot to put in my sodium lactate, and I'm not sure if this caused my soap batter to stay fluid for longer. I ended up, after about 8 minutes of mixing, adding in my sodium lactate. After the fact, I mixed it in with a little bit of distilled water, and I already had my batter separated, so I then had to separate that into 3 containers. And I was like, you know what, it's already going way wrong, let's just try everything to fix this. And it doesn't matter, I was making a small batch, I used 600 grams of fats, and it wasn't the end of the world if it wasn't going to be perfect. So I just went with it and tried. Then finally my batter started to thicken up of that first color, which was with the cocoa powder. And I poured it, and it set up so fast. It literally set up after a couple of seconds. Already when I moved my mold, it was not moving, it was not shaking, there was no movement whatsoever. Then I had to do my second color, and it took ages to get that. Well, it took not as long, but it also took quite long to get that to be a little bit thicker. And I poured that. Then I did my third color, where I put a lot more titanium dioxide in this time. You can also see the difference pretty well, I believe. I'm not sure if the camera picks that up, but this one is a lot brighter. It's also taller. I used a little bit more soap batter for my mold. And then I had it all in, and then I started to do my swirl. Immediately after I put in my rod to make my swirl, I felt the resistance of the bottom layer, and I was like, am I gonna push through? I mean, yeah, that's the plan. That's what I wanted to show. So I just pushed through it, and there was so much resistance. It was like it was already like partly solid, and I just went with it and swirled and swirled. And as I pulled out my rod, there was this big clump of the brown batter stuck to the rod, and I scraped it off, and it was just messy. And oh well. So I did the cut today. Yeah, I did the cut today actually, and I was like, oh well, you can definitely, especially, let's see which bar it is, where you can really tell where the rod went in and how it didn't like just move through the layers, which it did with here, where it just all parted a little bit and just made way for the other layers. Here it literally just like the shape of the pole that went in, and that's, well, the rod. And that's what it looked like this time. Now, I've used this technique once before, and I had the same issue. I just don't find it as obvious with this one. It's an orange soap. I literally can't cope with how good this smells, by the way. Like, it's an absolutely lovely scent. For all you viewers in the US, I purchased this in Germany, and it's a shop that sells all the most of the micas that I order from. It's called Oil HO, and they mix this themselves out of different fragrance oils and essential oils. So it's not something I can tell you what's exactly inside of it, or how to purchase it, but it smells really, really good. I believe actually most of the fragrance oils are from Nature's Garden. I think one is called Fresh Orange Cake. Then there's another orange scent in there. Then they added about 50% of it is orange essential oil. And all of this together makes the orange scent really stick, because there's a big problem when you make cold processed soap to get citrus scents to stick in your soap. Now you can try to add Kaolin Clay, but it doesn't always do the trick as well as mixing your essential oil with fragrance oils. At least that's what I believe it did the trick here. It smells wonderful. So that's what I wanted to show you guys. Yes, and I also wanted to show you guys my mold that I made myself. So it's a bit tricky getting like tall and skinny molds here. I mean, you can get them from some websites that deliver from China. I didn't want to wait that long, and I just wanted it to be customizable to my own needs, because sometimes I want to make a smaller batch or a larger batch. So this one I made myself. It's just I've seen a couple of tutorials online how to make this. There's one on YouTube, Modern Soap Making. This website has a tutorial which is pretty much the same as what I did. So we've got one part here that is, no, it's the wrong one. This one is stuck to the base, which you can tell here by the screws, and the other part is loose. Like, I can change this. I can put different dividers in there. For example, this one is for the tall and skinny, and I can also see right away what shape my soap will be. Or if I want to make a thicker one, like a bit wider, I can use this one. I had it all cut by my Home Depot shop, because I'm not very good with stuff like that. I don't have the machinery or the tools to make really straight cuts, and they did it for me, which has been a great service. So yeah, that's what I did. I hope this is pretty clear. I'm not sure I should talk a bit more about this, but if you have any questions, let me know, and maybe I can answer them in the comments. That would be awesome. Yeah, I also wanted to show you guys, because I've shared this in a couple of groups. It was my sandy beach ocean soap. I don't really recall what I called it. Let me show it like this, it's a bit clearer. It's with a line pour technique that I copied from Tree Marie's Soapworks, and she did an awesome job at showing this technique, and I implemented it in my beach themed soap. And when it comes to reproducing, I can't speak, soaps, I found out that you will never get the same results, and that's often a good thing. Sometimes it's annoying when you really want the exact same soap. It could also be that I don't have that much experience yet. This is now marks my 6th week that I'm making soap. So I wanted to show you guys how, when I redid it, what it looked like the second time. The thing I wasn't too pleased with the first time was the glycerin rivers, so I used a lot less water in this soap, and it really shows there are 0 glycerin rivers in this soap. But the design is, somehow the lines seem a bit thicker, even though I worked, like my batter was more liquid. But just a couple of things were, I guess, different, and the design is different, but I'm still very pleased with it. So it just goes to show, like, maybe your expectations shouldn't always be that it will turn out exactly the same, because you'll probably be disappointed. And I'm actually very happy, except, well, I'm used now. I've gotten used to the look of my new espresso soap. Yeah, it's a bit random and weird. But I think it's you know, especially when you're pouring some layers and you feel like they're not going to be straight, and I don't want it to look like I tried for them to be straight, then you can always just get a chopstick, or like I used a thick like wooden rod, and just swirl through it. At least it'll look like it was intentional, that was your design and that's how it was supposed to look. So I'm gonna stop talking now because it's been very long for my first video. If there's anything you want to know about me, about soap, about whatever, how we make soap in Germany, let me know in the comments. Because there are, I'll make another video next time where I'll tell you the differences that I've noticed between soap makers in the US or all over the world and in Germany. Because it seems like we're doing stuff a little bit different when it comes to a couple of things, and I think it was fun to point those out, and I'm curious about your opinions on them. Anyway, have fun watching my video and see you next time. Bye! So let's start making soap. First I add my Kaolin Clay. I add about 2 teaspoons or 1.5 or whatever I get left in my little box of Kaolin Clay that I have there. I could have added it all probably. So now I've got my ground up oats. It's hard to get colloidal oatmeal here in Germany, so I just, I know it's not the same to use ground oats, but I use these because I'm using oatmeal milk and honey fragrance oil. Yeah, so now I'm adding my lye solution. I've dissolved a little bit of brown sugar into the distilled water before I added my lye. It can help with the bubbles, and I just thought it'd be fun in the whole coffee oatmeal theme to add some brown sugar. So now I'm dividing up my batter into 3 equal parts for my 3 colors that I'll be adding later. The first color I'm adding is cocoa powder, unsweetened cocoa powder. I mixed it up with a little bit of water, I shaked it up, and then I added it to my first measurement cup. So you can't really see the brown color until you mix it with a stick blender, because you're adding a liquid to an emulsified batter. So the second one is pink clay. It looks nice and brown, and I also dissolved that in a little bit of water. So now I'm using my ground espresso beans, and I mix those up, and I leave the other color for now, and I'll do that later since I noticed that my batter is quite liquid anyway, so I have plenty of time to work. So let's stick blend this and see what happens. So the color changes immediately. I'm adding my fragrance oil, or at least 1/3 of it, and I notice that it's taking forever. So I start worrying about my other colors and check how they're doing. They're also very liquid, so I'm adding the fragrance oil, as apparently it's not speeding up trace at all. I've got my pre-mixed titanium dioxide in a bottle with some metal little balls to help shake them up. So it's also hard to tell how white it's going to be until you stick blend. So it still looks the same as before. That's why you need to be careful not adding too much. So now I'm adding my sodium lactate, which I totally forgot to add to my cooled off lye solution. And I thought maybe this is the reason why my batter is not thickening up. So I mixed it with a tiny bit of distilled water and added it to my batter, as I figured, do you know what, I think I've said it before. Yeah, we're just going to try anything that's possible to get this to work. So after literally what felt like hours of stick blending, I'm finally reaching trace, and I decide to pour my first color. So I'm adding my color, and it still looks fine at this moment, but what I didn't know is how fast this is going to set up, um, which I noticed once I start pouring my second color. So I'm blending this up. It also took quite a while. I'm speeding this up incredibly since you don't have to, because so that you don't have to wait as long as I did, because it took forever. So I'm adding a little bit of ground espresso to my lighter batter, and now I'm pouring my second color. And I didn't even need to use the spatula because it was so incredibly thick that I could have poured from 2 meters above and it would not have broke through the first layer. So now I'm stick blending my light color, and you can see right away how white that got, just because of stick blending, because finally it would mix in really well. So now I'm adding my third layer, and I did need the spatula for this one because my other layer had not set up yet. So I'm adding my layer. And I try to scrape everything out. And now I'm gonna start my, whatever it's called. I call it my big rod stick swirl or whatever. So I'm adding it in a diagonal angle and start swirling. And at this point, I've noticed how freaking thick the bottom is. And as I pull it out, you can already see everything got stuck to my rod, and I needed to tidy it up a tiny bit, well, as good as I tried. But my hopes for what it was going to be were pretty low at this point. So I let it set up for about 20 minutes because it was still too fluid to do my topping. And I forgot also to mark the size of my bars because I was going to put some espresso beans on top, and since I cannot cut through the espresso beans, I need to be very sure where I place them. So I measured my 6 pieces, and now I start spooning the top. And I'm like, lots of soap makers do this. I mean, I copied it from Ellen Ruth. Am I saying that right? Ellen Ruth soap, and I really love how she does it. I spaced them out a little bit more this time, and now with a pair of tweezers, I add my espresso beans. I use the tweezers because it's very tricky getting in there with your fingers, and if you drop the bean, you might mess up your design. So I figured it was best just using them and pressing them ever so slightly into the batter, so they would stick. For at least the first day or 2 days that you'd actually be using the soap, and it wouldn't fall straight off just handling the bar, because that would be a pity. Now, obviously, it's just a design thing. It's not like I didn't use. I know some people make embeds or like coffee beans out of soap dough. I have not. I'm still too new. I haven't even tried soap dough, so I have no idea actually how that would work and how people shape them to be these perfect little espresso beans, or if they have a mold for that. So yeah. So all done. Now I'm gonna spritz it with some rubbing alcohol, and then it's going to go into my oven, which has been preheated to 50 degrees Celsius, and I turn the oven off and then put my soap in. It's covered with some plastic wrap then, and I leave it there overnight with the light on, because my oven light gives off quite a bit of heat, and it's enough for my soap to go through gel stage. So finally, I cut my bars after about 17 hours, I believe. I literally could not wait any longer since I was so curious what the inside would look like. I just really wanted to know if it was gonna be a total disaster, because I actually didn't want to post a video if it was really bad. And even though at this stage whilst cutting, I'm like, oh god, it's really, really terrible. I've gotten used to the look by now. It's not what I was planning on. It didn't look like the first bars I made. But it's I don't really mind the messy look of them. I think it has, I don't know. I'm just trying to like find some positivity in these bars, and there I hit my bar and mess it up. My soap is still quite soft, as you can tell. I still feel like the little bit of sodium lactate actually helped. I'm cutting a little sliver off here because I'm worried about the spacing, which is so easy with these type of cutters that you can just get literally like a 1 millimeter cut, and yeah, a lot easier than doing with a knife. So some bars look quite okay. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. It's soap, you know. You're gonna use it to wash, and I still think it's kind of pretty, you know. Could have been worse. It could have been. It could have had like really big air holes or something, like big gaps, and it turned out to be quite a smooth and nice bar. So that's good. So the last little end piece, then I'm gonna lay them out for you to see once more, because that's what people do. Yeah, so I've got 6 nice bars, and like one little end piece, and then some like little slivers of soap. So let's add that one. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it anyway, and see you next time. Bye.